Hello, and welcome to part 2 of our series on medicinal oils. So, during part 1, we discussed neem as well as fenugreek. We talked about the medicinal properties and uses of each. This next herb we're going to speak about has been around and in use for centuries. It's called lavender. Many of you may have heard of lavender, but what you may not know is the different uses for lavender. Some of you may have it planted in your garden as a seasonal flower, just for the beauty of the blooms, or you may like the fragrance. So today we are going to read an excerpt from the New Whole Foods Encyclopedia by Rebecca Wood. And this is a very good book to read when you're wanting to know the health benefits of certain foods or if they have any negative effects. So, lavender. The name lavender comes from the Latin lavare, which means to wash. Now, on that note, one of the traditional uses of lavender were for royalty to bathe with lavender in their bathwater as their fragrance. So that kind of goes along with that, to wash. But let's talk about some of the health benefits of lavender. Now, lavender is a culinary herb as well as a medicinal herb. So when you cook with lavender for culinary reasons, it also is healing. It also has a healing effect. So if you're drinking a lavender tea, it's going to relax you. So if you have insomnia or you're restless, irritable, you can drink some lavender tea just like you would any other herbal tea or drink. But it's going to have a medicinal effect. It's going to relax you and allow you to go to sleep. And you can also use it topically in ointments or oils or other treatments. So we're going to go through a few of those uses now. So some of the problems that can be treated internally with like a lavender tea would be indigestion, irritability, depression, anxiety, headaches. Now, from personal experience, I used to get sinus headaches from lavender, but most of that was commercially produced, like lavender candles or something. So I don't even know if that even had lavender in it. From my experience working directly with lavender myself, and I have limited the amount that I use, then it doesn't bother me. It can also be used for migraine headaches, bronchial problems. You can relieve spasms, like if you have muscle spasms, lavender will relieve that. It helps with digestion and circulation. It also lowers fevers. So, externally, lavender can be used if you like burn your hand in cooking. If you have a sunburn, you can apply lavender on that and it'll start the healing process. It can be used for muscle pain or insect bites. And on that note, as far as insect bites, what many people don't know is it also repels mosquitoes. So other than harvesting the lavender for personal use, one reason that I grow lavender myself is I like to have a planter in front of the house and a planter behind the house because mosquitoes love me. So since I've planted this lavender, I've not had mosquitoes. It can also be used, it is anti-leukemia and has anti-tumor effects as well. So those are some of the uses for lavender. And I've got some lavender here. This is some lavender from my planter that I harvested, and I have dried the lavender. And this is one thing I haven't spoken about so far, is that anytime you're making a medicinal oil, oil and water do not mix well. You can mix oil and water in a blender when you're making a face cream or hand cream, but that's a whole different process. That's emulsification. So just for the oil itself, you don't want any moisture. It's going to cause bacteria to grow in your oil, and you'll have to throw it away if there's some moisture in your oil. So what you want to do is dry your herbs first, And I have some here. These are just little lavender leaves and stems. By the time I harvested them, the flowers had fallen away. So it's just, you know, leaves and stems. Okay, now the lavender buds themselves are more potent, but the leaves and stems are going to do the same sort of thing. Now I have some lavender oil that I prepared last night and have left out to cool with the lid on it. And it, as you can see, or I hope you can tell, it does still have the leaves and stems in there. I have not strained it yet. We will do that momentarily. So the next herb that we're going to speak about is called rosemary. I know a lot of you are familiar with rosemary. Even Simon and Garfunkel in the famous Scarborough Fair song mentions rosemary to go along with the other culinary herbs that are traditionally used for chicken soup, and that is because of the healing properties in those herbs. And I'm going to read just a little bit about the properties and uses of rosemary. And what I'm going to take that from is a book entitled Today's Herbal Health. This is a herbal reference guide by Louise Tenney. Louise Tenney has spent years in the field of herbal health, and this is just one of her compilations. So, rosemary. The leaves are used of the rosemary plant. The properties, and I'm not going to go through every single one of these. We'll just talk about a few. Antioxidant, antiseptic, so you can sterilize with and clean with it. Anti-inflammatory, analgesic. For those of you who don't know what analgesic is, a Tylenol is an analgesic. So it's a pain relieving. So it also helps with pain. So some of the things it can be used for is indigestion, rheumatic disorders. Usually when they say rheumatic disorders, it's talking about like rheumatoid arthritis, things like that. It strengthens, your nervous system, helps relieve depression and headaches. It's good for migraines, restlessness, nervousness, and insomnia. And again, we're not going to go over everything. You can do a little bit more studying on your own on that. But those are just a few things that rosemary is good for. So today, I've got some rosemary twigs here. And this rosemary I just purchased at the grocery store. It was fresh rosemary in a pack in the vegetable department, the produce department. And I purchased it for a chicken recipe, and when I finished with it, I just let it dry. And I'm going to make some medicinal oil out of that. So, mostly you just use the leaves, but the stems still do have a few properties left in them, so I have decided to break those up as well. So I'm just going to break up the rest of these and put them in the jar here. Okay, and that concludes this portion of the oils that we will be using today, or excuse me, the herbs we will be discussing today. And the next section we will be actually talking about our other ingredients for our oils, how to make the oil and strain it and store it, etc. So, see you in a few.